Hey, Scott, how you doing, man?
Jason, how are you? How are things?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. It is good to talk to you. I'm going to say again, it's been a couple of years, I think, but it is good to talk to you again, my friend.
Excellent. Yes, I know it has. I'm trying to think of the last time here.
The last time was actually on the patio at Count's Vamped in Las Vegas, for those who are listening. And he mentioned it. I've always kind of wanted to bring you on the show and talk to you about what you've done and what you're currently doing, because there's a lot of cool stuff there, man.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, we're really excited. I'm really excited here.
Yeah, well, before we jump into SWAGGERMOUTH, exactly what's going to be going on with that, for those who don't know who Jason Ebs is, I mean, the first time I experienced you, I was at the Bad Boys of Kiss tour, dude. I was there. At the Toronto show. It was at RPM in Toronto. I remember when Peter came out and you were fronting the band, and I thought, this guy is the coolest looking frontman I've ever seen in my life. And it was one of the greatest nights, man. And you guys just rocked. And that was my introduction to you, Jason Ebs. Before we get into your stuff, how did you get involved with Peter Criss initially?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the compliment, man. I remember that RPM show. In fact, it's one of the few shows that has a recording in its entirety that's up on YouTube, actually.
Oh, awesome.
So I remember that. I just joined the band. So let me see here. I was going to Penn State University before I committed to doing music full time. And I was in a band out there called Split Decision. And there was another band with a friend of mine, Kevin Webster, that we were acquaintances. We were bandmates, you know, or band competitors in State College, PA.
Yeah.
And make a long story short, I had heard he moved out to LA, and then I moved out here, and I was walking down Hollywood Boulevard with my guitar on my back on my way to GIT.
Yep.
And I hear, Jason. And I'm like, who the fuck is that? Nobody knows me yet. I just got here, you know?
Right.
It turned out to be Kevin. So we became friends out here, and he invited me to his wedding to be his best man. So he was getting married in the cliffs in Malibu, and the ceremony was beautiful, and then it started to rain. So basically we went back to his apartment in Hollywood, and we had the reception there. And I remember saying, man, I wish I had an acoustic guitar. I want to jam. And this my good luck charm, Kiki Wow, goes out to her car and brings in an acoustic. And then I played this version of a song of mine called Open. And it was magical. There were so many harmonies. The whole wedding party was musicians. Yeah. And after we got done, someone came up to me and said, hey, my roommate's a bass player for Peter Criss. They're looking for a singer.
Wow. And it was that simple. It was just like, okay.
Well, it was interesting. It was really interesting because at the time I had just joined a band and I was just singing for the first time, fronting with no guitar. Yeah. And, you know, I'm really loyal when it comes to bands, so I didn't quite get excited yet. Yeah. I went home and I listened to the tunes, and then I started to get excited. Then I started to remember what it was like when I was 12 years old, and, you know. And then I went in for the audition, and it was a little interesting. He just sat on the couch, and Angel, the guitar player, and I were standing up playing, and I brought my rig. You know, this was the 90s, so I had a 16 Space Mesa boogie rack and, you know, all this shit. You know, and I lug all this shit in there, and he's just sitting on the couch, and we were auditioning at Paul Shortino's studios at the time. Yeah. And I had known Paul and his brother Vinny from Captain's Cabin and the Jams, Slash, and freaking Matlock, and everybody used to go hang out there, Lukather, and we'd all jam and stuff. So, and I went in and I auditioned, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it because we didn't jam. And as I walk out, Paul goes, man, you got this. There's nobody that can touch this. And the tour was already coming with Ace for the Bad Boys. And I'm sitting outside waiting for my ride because I didn't have a car at the time. I was living on my friend's floor. Yeah. And I just broke up with my girlfriend. You know, the Hollywood story.
Totally, dude. Yeah.
And living on the edge, man. And I knock on the door and I open the door and like a deer in the headlights, they're all sitting there and they're all smoking a joint. And I look like I caught them in the act, you know. And I said, hey, man, I'm still here. My ride's on here. Why don't we just jam a little bit? And they said, well, you know what? Not today, but come back tomorrow. And that was it.
Really, eh? Yeah. No, I mean, I gotta ask you, like, and I remember again seeing that show and just being such a huge fan of Kiss as I was, but also being introduced to, you know, who was playing not just, you know, with Ace's band, but with Peter's band, you included. What was that tour like? Like, what was that experience? What was like being on the road with those guys like?
Well, you know what? It was amazing, man, because I never had to do the small little van tour. I played in a cover band at Penn State, and we did as well as you can do. And I played a show for 20,000 people opening for Joan Jett and the Hooters, I think. And then I moved to LA. So this was my first experience with a tour. So I went from playing bar gigs and at Penn State to being on tour with half a Kiss. And the first moment I walked on stage, man, that's when I realized the incredible fanatical support that Kiss fans provide, man. I was just stunned and floored and humbled and excited. And, people were handing me Kiss Alive 1 and 2 to sign, and I'm looking at them like, really? You want me to sign these records, But they did, and it was nice to be on that level,
Yeah, certainly. And one thing I got to mention is that for people who don't know Las Vegas, every year they do an event called Kiss Night in Vegas, which is such a great celebration. I've seen you there, of course, and so many. Bruce Kulick, when Bob was alive, there was a lot of people that would go to this event, and it's such a cool thing. And a real celebration of that stuff. So I'm always glad that you're there, though, because I think that you were such a part of, at least of my experience with that band, because that was I never saw Kiss. I saw the Bad Boys of Kiss tour before I actually saw Kiss. So that you were a big part of that for me.
Oh, Scott, thank you, man. I didn't see Kiss till after the Bad Boys tour. So when I saw Kiss, I saw them as an adult with Peter saying, this one goes out to the boys, which he used to call us.
Yeah.
And Paul Stanley waving to me from his platform above the audience. And I'm sitting next to Rudy Sarzo. And I'm just like, this is fucking surreal, man.
Oh, dude, Rudy Sarzo is dude, that just made it even so much cooler. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's great. I see him a lot at Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp because I'm a counselor there and stuff. But
you just led right into my next thing. Is that I know you've been involved with Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, doing a lot of cool stuff there. How did you get involved with that, Jason?
Well, let me see. Back when I was living in LA and I had a band, Ecotonic, and Chris Slade from AC/DC had joined the band, and we were hanging out a lot and rehearsing and getting ready to record our record or in the middle of it or something. Yeah. And he was a counselor at Fantasy Camp. So he said, Jason, Janea, you guys should come down to the House of Blues. My accent sucks right now, but
it's all good, man.
Went down to the now defunct House of Blues on Sunset, and it was a Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp night, and I didn't know much about it. But I knew Kip Winger was in charge, and Extreme was headlining, and Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp was opening. Mm-hmm. So I went down there and I saw what it was, and half the people that were the counselors I knew, and I'm like, man, this is really cool. So fast forward 4 years later, Slade's. I moved to Vegas, and then when I moved here, Fantasy Camp had opened up a brick and mortar. In Las Vegas. Yep. So I reached out to David Fishoff and said, I met you with Chris Slade, and he put me in touch with someone, and I started doing Rockstar for a Day stuff, and this had to be 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
So I've now been involved for, 11 years, and I'm one of the staples. I've probably done 17 camps, and it's just a really great experience where we change people's lives, man. I'll get a group of people. One of them might be a screenwriter. One of them's a billionaire because he owns all the fish that comes out of the ocean in the Arctic. Right. The other one might be a kid because his father saved up and wanted him to meet. Another one's a drummer that just always wanted to play with me, and it was his fantasy. And we get them all together in a room, and we got basically 4 days to whip them into shape. But they have 1 day, and then they start sitting in with the special guests. And the last camp was Michael Anthony, Sebastian Bach, and Stone Temple, DeLeo brothers.
Oh, that's crazy, man. That would have been awesome.
It's so much fun for me because I get to see these people now, and I've become friends with, the STP guys and all that.
Sure. And
just my fellow counselors like Joel Hoekstra or Brett Lightning or, Tommy London's been doing stuff. And it's just really, really cool.
And one thing I really got to commend you for too is the way you've embraced social media and your social media presence. Your live streams that you do with your wife. Those are really entertaining. I love some of that stuff that you were doing. How, I guess, important do you say it is really for musicians today to become, a part of that and to embrace social media in the way that you do?
I think it's really important. I'm trying, man. The kids really have it down. I'm doing the best I can. There's, apparently there's times to do it, the right times to make a release and all this stuff. But I think it's important, man. It's, one thing that I don't do is I never try to pretend anything's better than it is. And maybe I'm lucky that my life's pretty cool and I don't have to exaggerate it. But that's the only thing. I'm not a big fan of the artificial culture of it, but.
Yeah.
And there's a bit, to me, there's a bit of a narcissistic approach too, because what was a selfie? We didn't know what a selfie was 15 years ago.
Right.
Look at me. So I try to balance the difference between putting good out into the world, because that's really what my motivation in life is to show by example and to be good and not to screw people over. And I believe in karma and promote that way. And, to me, like attracts like. So we're building our army of repeat offenders, if you will.
SWAGGERMOUTH, the new thing going on, dude. Your latest thing. You've got the debut single "Let It Roll" from the new album called "Never Shut Up."
That is correct. Yeah. So SWAGGERMOUTH is the post version of Ecotonic. So Slade was over here. We were in my other house where I had a studio, and then we were recording songs for the next record.
Yeah.
And we were 5 songs in, and then AC/DC called him and pulled him back into the band. And now, me, I'm like, wait, I just lost one drummer to Kiss. Now I'm losing my other drummer to freaking AC/DC. And then I was hanging out with Mickey D right when he joined the Scorpions, and he was going, "You're going to be my next singer." And I'm like, Scorpions too. I'm like, what is it with me?
That is surreal, dude. Like, that is really surreal if you think about it for a second.
And to me, it's an honor, because that means that, that Slade saw me in Jimmy Page's role.
Sure.
And that, so, I'm humbled and honored by that. So, but the point is, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And during COVID, I'm like, man, I got this record. I got to do something with this. So I started tracking it. And I basically played all the guitars, all the bass, half the drums, half the keys. And then Michael T. Ross played keys on it. And so did my new keyboard player named Borgi from Argentina. He's great, man. I
love that Michael T. Ross is on there, by the way, too. I'm a big fan. So that's
cool. Yeah. So he was very much instrumental part. And my wife, Janea, of course, is involved.
Yes.
And so Janea, Slade, and I wrote everything together. Most of the songs, I think half the songs Slade co-wrote with us, the rest Janea and I wrote. Mm-hmm. And then when it came time to do something with it, I'm like, you know what? I talked to Slade, and I'm like, how you doing, man? He's like, well, I'm pretty busy with Timeline over in England. He's got a great thing called the Criss Slade Timeline. And they have a record coming out, too, at the same time, which I think is ironic. So I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to rebuild the band, and I'm going to find some cool guys because I know all kinds of musicians that have names. I'm like, I want to find people that haven't been exposed yet. And I want SWAGGERMOUTH to come out as a band, because that's what I really like in life,
Yeah.
So I found some great guys. And we just shot our video for Let It Roll over this last weekend. So the second edit's supposed to come in tonight. And we're real excited about everything.
Well, tell me about Let It Roll, the song exactly. Like, where did that one come to fruition from? Is that strictly you sitting down, like, say, at the end of your bed and just strumming chords like that old fashioned way? Or is it you messing around with like different things you saved on your phone? Like where did this song come from? Where for you?
Well, you know what? I like to play in a bunch of different tunings. So yeah. I think I was actually in a low open B. So are you familiar with Dagdag or Dadgag? It's an open tuning.
Okay.
So, and it's usually D. Well, I went all the way down to B, and I was just, I have guitars all over the house in different tunings. Mm-hmm. And I picked this up that one day and I went into this riff. And I was just like, this is so heavy. Then Slade laid drums on it, and literally the song, I think I called it Let It Roll, but for 7 or 8 years, there was no music, there was no lyrics to it. And it just sat there. And when I was doing this record, it was like the sleeper. It was the last one. And I'm like, you know what? I got to do something with it. I pulled up the track and I'm like, this is a great track.
Yeah.
And it's the vibe of it. And it was so heavy, and it was like slammin' pop, as I call it, like heavy slammin' pop. And then, I just came up with the lyrics over it. I know Janea came up with some parts too, but I came up with a lot of the stuff. And then it came together really well, and I was like, maybe this should be the single.
Now, that's the thing I want to ask about Janea as well. I mean, obviously, you guys being together, do you ever find yourselves like, all of a sudden you'll just be hanging out at home, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got a riff, or I got an idea that just popped in my head, or maybe she'll come up with the kind of thing, and you guys just kind of write things randomly. Like, does that ever happen?
All the time. Yeah, I hear her coming up with new songs in the other room all the time, weekly, daily, sometimes. And it's really nice, And we just, by the way, so over the course between the time when we started the record And in October, we were leasing a home, and that home the person wanted to sell, and we made an offer, and they didn't really want it. They didn't take it seriously. And my wife opens up looks at the MLS and finds this thing that says studio house, a beautiful home with a professional studio in it. And we're like, what the hell is this? We went and looked at it. It turned out to be the Imagine Dragons band house where they recorded all their hit records.
Oh, crazy. Huh.
So they owned this house together as a band, and it's where they recorded, just like the Killers did. I think the Killers actually did a record here too. Yeah. So lo and behold, we bought the house. So now our next record we're going to do in this room that we now have was our rehearsal and recording studio.
Oh, well, congratulations, Jason. That's awesome, dude. That's great. What a score, dude.
I know, man. And it's so crazy. And I mean, it's just the serendipity's flowing here. It's nuts. But yeah, so we're really lucky. So it's nice now that, everything else I had is a living room conversion. And I've gotten good at setting up the studio and moving it. Every time I do it, it's harder and harder because I have more and more stuff. But I don't have to do it again. I got a pro studio, and it's called Dragon Castle Studios. Yeah. Okay. When I have my dad and mom come over, they were so proud. My dad's like, "Congratulations on your castle." And I'm like, "I love that." And then, Imagine Dragons. So I figured I'd pay homage and call it Dragon Castle Studios.
Never Shut Up does drop. Obviously, it's going to be available streaming platforms. It's going to be out there. What are you going to be doing in the way of getting out there to promote it? You guys going to be hitting the road? You guys going to stay in local for a while? What's the plan?
Well, we just hired on Kelly Walsh at SRO Promotions. Yep. With Mitchell Snyder, so she's great. So we're gonna, hit the press release so we can reach the world that way. And we're starting to book some shows around. So I'm reaching out to some independent promoters and such. The dates that we have for sure that we're going to be doing, we're going to be in Sturgis in August 6th and 8th.
Cool.
At Saddle. I don't know that. I should know that. And then Full Throttle, I think one of the days, maybe the 7th.
Oh, Full Throttle will be awesome.
Yeah, that's what we're going for. And Tommy London will hopefully come sit in with us there. I don't know if you know Tommy, but
yeah, I do, absolutely. Yeah, dude, that'll be cool. That'll be very cool, man. Jason, I can't tell you enough how cool it's been talking to you.
Well, you know what? Thank you so much, Scott. I really appreciate you having me here, and thank you for being a fan. And it's nice to talk to people from way back when.
Certainly is. I'm sure I'll see you around Vegas at some point, dude.
Absolutely. And my wife Janea says hi, and the band can't wait to talk to you as well. So maybe we can do this again when they're here.
Sounds great to me, man. Let's make that happen.
Thank you so much, Scott. Oh, and swaggermouth.com. Find us on the socials. We're on Instagram and Facebook and all that. Thanks for listening.